Tuesday, March 15th, Finance Committee meeting to order. Bill, do you have the roll?
I do have the roll. All committee members are present.
First item is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, but I have one edit, and it's miscellaneous number 2. I voted no for that, but other than that, I think they look good.
Is there a second? Any other discussion? Everybody accept that change?
Okay, I'll make that correction.
Thank you.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is out of the bills. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Are there any additions?
There are no additions tonight. I just wanted to note that there's the regular unpaid invoices and also the February credit cards tonight.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 1 under resolution is the resolution 2022-06, Middleton Beach Road reconstruction final assessments. Is there a motion?
We'll move approval.
I will second that.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 is resolution 2022-15, Deming Prairie, which is SACO, to TIF bond. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
And I will second.
Is there any discussion? Did they overspend, or is it, did they do it right?
Their
Just
costs
under.
were a little higher than the maximum in the agreement. So the amount in the agreement is the amount of the TIF bond.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is resolution 2022-17, budget amendment for microgrid feasibility and community resiliency study. Is there a motion?
So
move
moved.
approval.
I'll
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to Kelly for her hard work on this. I
Mhm.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Agreed.
wonderful.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is resolution 2022-18, budget amendment for the battery storage project. Is there a motion?
I'll
So
move
moved.
approval.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? So this is going to cost what? The difference between the $100,000 grant? So about $112,000.
So this grant is for $212,000. So the way I tried to put it together is that we had the previous item you just acted on for $100,000. Then there's the current amendment for this item for an additional $212,000 in grant revenue. So the amended budget with both of those would be $312,000. And out of this $212,000 from this grant, $30,000 would be for the project design. That's the item that's coming up later on it's not later on this agenda, but there's $30,000 for design planned, and then that would leave up to $182,000 for construction, but the construction has not been bid yet.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 1 under agreements is EMS agency medical direction agreement with UW hospitals and clinics. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Actually, you know what? We should probably take all 3 of these at the same time. So I'm going to bring in item 2, technology addendum to the EMS agency medical direction agreement with University of Wisconsin hospitals, and then 3, business associate agreement with the University of Wisconsin hospitals and clinics. Can we get a motion to dispense with all 3 of these at the same time?
Yeah.
They're all interrelated.
Good move.
Yeah, I'm fine.
First, has our legal counsel looked at all 3 of these agreements?
Yes, I have. I've approved them. The only issue is there's fairly onerous reporting requirements that I brought to Steve's attention. But beyond that, there's nothing wrong with them.
And just for edification, the technology addendum, is that so that they can get into Epic, or is there some other IP that UW has?
I have no idea.
Primarily, they actually allow us to use a learning management system called Ninth Brain, which is shared among all the agencies that do this. So they host it, and essentially it's for keeping track of all of our educational offerings and that. So they also have another program that does quality assurance control of all the cardiac arrest cases. So again, they host that. We essentially feed data into it. So that's really nothing other than a broad agreement that allows us to use their contracted software and provide data to them.
And if I read this right, the only thing they're going to keep is amalgamated data. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the PHI?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Which that HIPAA requires business associated agreements just to be compliant with HIPAA. We've got a number of those, but for instance, Dane County and other ones are record management system, all those. So pretty common.
Okay. Anybody have any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of these agreeing to all 3 of these signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is agreement with Hamel, Green, and Abramson, HTA, for a business park microgrid and community resiliency center study. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is amendment number 2 to agreement for design engineering services with Strand Associates for Pleasant View Road construction. There's a motion.
I think we might need some clarification from Sean before there were some changes from Public Works. I can.
Yeah, let's get started with a motion in a second,
Okay.
and then we can discuss what we need to do.
Okay.
I'll move approval then.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, so Kathy, you wanted to start. I know there was some late stuff from Sean today.
Yeah, I just wanted Sean to kind of go over with what the changes meant and what Public Works recommended last night also, and how that could impact how we decide which way our path here. Sean is on.
I am, yeah. If I'm coming through okay. So I kind of broke this into 2 separate issues. One, and the smaller of the 2 issues, is just some relative cleanup work where we're going to ask Strand to prepare an assessment roll because they've already got all the measurements for area and distance available in their computer programming. And we'll do the rest of the assessment stuff, but just calculating the roll would be pretty straightforward. And then the second thing is, as we need to produce some legal documents for real estate issues, we'll need legal descriptions and exhibit map drawings. And so we'll be leaning on Strand to produce those things. So all told, I don't think it'll come to $5,000, depending on what we're asking for. But that's just a number that I put out there as an upper limit. The second issue is by far the more substantive issue, which is that as we were nearing end of final design, I guess the plans had already been turned into the state, but not yet FHWA, Federal Highway Administration. The TIF implementation group expressed an aesthetic preference for a different fabrication of the pedestrian bridge that goes over Pleasant View Road from the end of the trail up to the golf course, whereby the bottom chord of the bridge structure would appear more level than if it just followed the deck, because the path itself, the deck of the path, inclines from the east toward the west. So it's walking uphill toward the golf course, if that makes sense. And so having an inclining deck.
We lost you, Sean.
Frozen.
Somebody take a screenshot of that. That's a good picture. Sean. That'd be a good picture to put on the Facebook for Sean.
If Sean doesn't make it back, I'm one of the people who sits on
that, right? Is that essentially what's going on? Strand wanted $30,000 to redesign that bridge, and Public Works said no.
That's mainly it.
Yeah.
And there's many good reasons from an engineering standpoint why it adds a lot of added complexity. But yeah, in the end, Public Works said we do not recommend this.
I don't know what happened. Middle of a sentence, my internet decided now's a good time to quit. So anyway, yeah, so it started getting into design of the retaining wall, and that's the retaining wall that has a lot of enhanced graphics on it. But then the slope behind that retaining wall, the grassy slope, goes from a 4-to-1 slope, which means every 4 feet horizontally rises 1 foot vertically. And it takes that slope and increases it to more like a 3-to-1 slope, which can be mowed, but mowing equipment tends to migrate downhill at that sort of slope. And that's not all bad if there's a flat path or sidewalk at the bottom of the slope, but when there's a retaining wall at the bottom of the slope, that becomes a safety issue. So we would have to figure out some other way to mitigate that safety issue. And it was just starting to snowball into some of these design issues. And whereas Strand had initially thrown out a figure of, well, we could redesign the bridge fabrication for $15,000, getting into these other issues, they said would about double that to $30,000. And we still have to figure out what to do with the side slope. So yeah, that's where Public Works stepped in last night and recommended that Finance and Council just don't change the design of the retaining wall and bridge at this point, and skip all those issues. It still is something, we're going to be looking at it for a long time. So if the council has a clear preference for a bottom chord that appears more level than the deck will be running, there's never going to be a better time to get into that. But it does have some issues that we'll have to figure out quickly.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any other discussion? Is there any other
Sean,
preferences?
I do have a question. Sean, so this is $30,000. Is it my understanding that 15 of it was to make it look level, and the other 15 was still needed to for that left bracket. Is that right, or is it all 30,000 to level it out?
Yeah, it's for all the ancillary issues other than maybe the slope safety issue, because we don't know what that would be just yet. I mean, this sort of dropped out of DOT feedback on Thursday, so we just didn't have a lot of time to frame this issue, but we also don't have a lot of time to address this issue. So if it's not decided tonight, it's not happening as an addendum. It could happen as a change order later, but as you all know, change orders is shorthand for expensive. So I would say if we're going to do it, it should be an addendum to the bid, not a change order to the contract.
Anybody
Can I
else on
clarify?
staff? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask for the maker and second on the motion. Was that based on the staff recommendation for just the 5,000, but not the additional for the bridge?
My motion is just for the 5,000.
Okay.
Is that, has other staff, has the TIF staff weighed in on this, on whether they want to make this thing pretty or just functional? Is anybody else weighing in on this?
I think TIF staff, I've heard from Abby and Jeff Maloney with Vandewall, they're still in favor of the aesthetic change.
Well, I guess
there's Abby
TIF,
right there.
So the TIF team's original preference was for a bridge that would be level. So I guess when we learned that the bridge that was designed was offset by a few feet, that came as a surprise, I think, to the TIF team. And so what we were trying to do, working with the rest of the PMT group, was to try to come up with a design solution that wouldn't be extremely costly, but that would at least improve the aesthetics of the bridge. And we thought that we had that solution, but then we learned in the middle of last week that the Bureau of Structures at the state was recommending against the design solution that we were proposing. And so Sean pulled a meeting together with me and Jeff Maloney from Vandewall, but none of the rest of the TIF team was able to attend that meeting on short notice. After hearing the concerns from the engineers, my own personal recommendation would be not to go into the additional design work to try to solve the issue, now that I understand all the complexities that came out of it. But that's just my own personal preference, because our TIF group hasn't met since then to discuss.
I'd agree with that, Abby.
So I have a question for Sean, that how did we get into it?
I'm sorry, what?
Why did we not, why were we not aware of this when the design work was happening?
I'm not sure. It's normal to just draw a mock-up of a bridge flat, but the design has been uphill, as far as I know, for quite some time. Yeah. That if we want to make the bridge where we're at, right, with the grade change that's going on, if we want to make the bridge level, then we need to increase the slope of the path on the approach, either on the east side of the road or the west side of the road, or both. But they're pretty much maxed out at 88.5% slopes. So it would effectively be saying, if you want to make the bridge deck level, then one of those two path slopes have to be in excess of 88 grade.
So are there any safety issues if we leave it as it is?
No, it's not uncommon for a bridge deck to have some slope to it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 1 under bids and quotes is award a proposal to Peak Systems Group for supply of new audio system for the outdoor pool. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? That motion carries. That appears to be the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I just want to stay on. All right.
quick.
Well, our time with you is so limited, Mark, you know.
Oh, brother.
Light on quick here. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Finance is adjourned.
Kathy, you'll see him in another 40 minutes.
Probably for a longer period of time, the way the agenda looks.